Hey, all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today we're going to have a special guest on a company I'm going to spotlight called Backyard Life Gear. They make covers and other accessories for Blackstone and Camp Chef flat top griddles. And we're going to talk to the owner, Mr. Raun Luterbach. I'll be right back with Raun from Backyard Life Gear.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey, all, before we get on to the show, I want to talk to you for a second about Instacart. Instacart's a great service that allows you to do all your grocery shopping online, and they can get you your groceries in as fast as 1 hour. They connect you with personal shoppers in your area that know your markets, and they can get them from your favorite stores. They find all the great buys and smart suggestions for you online to save you money. They pick the freshest produce, and they check your eggs and make sure they're not cracked. Check them out, guys. Instacart is offering free delivery on your first order of over $35 in the link below. Check them out. And now, on to the show. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast, everybody. I'm Darren, I'm your host. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Raun Luterbach. He is the owner of Backyard Life Gear. They sell barbecue and actually mostly grilling and grill products that go with like your flat top grill. But Raun, welcome to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey Darren, thanks for having me. I'm the owner of Backyard Life Gear. I've been in business for about 3 years now. So kind of got started, let's go back in time a little bit. Where did this all come from?
Let's start out. So where do you live and all that? And let's talk about where you are, because you're up in from what I understand, the cold area, and you don't get to grill too often. So let's talk about that, where you're at.
Absolutely. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's cold. It's snowy. I'm ready for summer again. We just had a rough weekend of snowstorms, but everything's kind of straightening out now.
What do you do for your living up there?
So I work a day job. I work for a restaurant industry supplier. Don't necessarily have to go into a whole lot of detail about that. We supply all sorts of different restaurants, hospitality industry kind of stuff. And that's kind of a tie-in to how I got into my side business. It was an introduction into manufacturing and production of food grade and cooking grade equipment. And so that sort of tied into my own personal interest in outdoor cooking, live fire cooking, all that good stuff.
So you're married, have kids, all that?
Yep. Have a wife and 2 kids. I got 2 boys. One is 6 years old, the other is 4. They kind of like to follow dad around. Anytime there's a fire going, they like to be by it.
Awesome.
As it should be.
Yeah, I remember those days. My youngest is 12 now, and my son is 18, just got his Eagle Scout. So those days are gone. So I'm waiting for the grandkids to pick up the slack on that. But it's a great time to, especially when they're 6 around that age, because you can actually talk to them. They understand you, and they're fun to play with, and They look up to you mostly. They're not talking back yet.
Yeah, not so much.
So what's your barbecue experience here?
I'm just an amateur. I've had a bunch of different grills and smokers over the years. I've had the the Weber kettle. I had a few of those actually. I've had a horizontal barrel stick burner. I've had a propane smoker. My current is a pellet smoker. Flat top griddles. I love cast iron cooking. Anything with the flame.
Yeah, there's nothing nothing ashamed to be an amateur. I'm an amateur still, even though I've been doing it for 40 plus years, playing around. I've never had any desire to compete in competitions or do it professionally. I did work in the restaurant industry when in my younger years. Nothing like a fine dining or anything fancy. It was mostly just regular like TGI Fridays and Denny's and stuff like that. Until I learned I couldn't make any money at that, or the hours were too weird. But there's nothing wrong with being an amateur, because sometimes that's the passion. You get more passion being somebody that's doing it, cooking for your family, than you would, doing it as a competitor anyway. So.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm an enthusiast first. That's what drives me is playing around with this stuff and eating the food myself and the people that I love. So
absolutely.
So what got you started with it? Was it something your dad did? I mean, was it something you picked up on your own? Was it your mom, following her around in the kitchen, or?
There was some of that. My mom's a good cook. We grilled out a little bit here and there as a kid, not a whole lot, and nothing fancy. Hamburgers, brats, chicken, that kind of thing. I had a job in high school working at a kind of a big hardware store, basically, and I worked in the lawn and garden department. And so one of my tasks was assembling all of the grills and that sort of stuff. And that was kind of my introduction into the world of outdoor cooking equipment. I realized that I actually quite enjoyed doing the assembly and learning about it, and what makes one thing better than another, and how do you find the right piece of equipment for a particular person's needs. So that's kind of where that got started, and it kind of lied dormant in me for a while. And so what happened almost 10 years ago, my wife and I ended up having a miscarriage with our first child. And that was kind of a wake-up call to me. Time to start taking things seriously a bit. And spend a bit of time doing some introspection, figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing on this planet. And it was around that time that I realized that I had that desire to get a bit more involved in outdoor cooking, in sort of the primal nature of fire, all of that kind of stuff, and sort of bring it out. I knew at that point that I wanted to be involved in the industry somehow, and so I actually started connecting with some small inventors, I guess you could say, of outdoor cooking type equipment. Like I don't know if you remember, it's almost 10 years ago. There was the big deal with stuffed hamburgers. There was
the Juicy Lucy's,
there was one sort of the big one that came out was called the Stuffs burger stuffer. I actually sold those for a few years back then. Back when those, basically right at the beginning of that business, when they were made in America before they shifted production overseas. And there were a couple of other small startups that I kind of got involved in as a reseller of their stuff. And that was kind of that was my first attempt to kind of get into that. And there were a few different little plays over time. And I just knew I had this draw, and someday the pieces were going to come together, and that's kind of how that's how I got to starting my company.
Well, that's kind of interesting that you didn't. With me, it was more about the cooking. With you, it was more about putting the grills together and seeing how they work together and the different equipment and how people can use the different equipment. I think that's kind of interesting because most people I talk to, even on the podcast, it's all about, how it was all about cooking and how the food itself, but it's a little bit different. It's more like the kid, playing with the Lincoln Logs or the erector set, and you got the interest in how to put things together and how to design things for to make it easier for people. I think that's neat because I don't get too many people on like that. It's mostly, they talk about cooking and how they started in cooking and stuff, but
I mean, I'm kind of a tinkerer, and so I'm a tinkerer. Well, that's how the business got started, but in the kitchen as well. It's a lot of it's experimenting. When you get into barbecue, especially sous vide, it's very formulaic, and there's different paths that you can take. So you can be a traditional barbecuer, and you sort of learn to read the coals and kind of get a feel for it, and it works. Or you can have a setup with 15 different temperature probes, and you're monitoring all of them at the same time, and that works too. But they're astronomically different.
Yeah, definitely. I really understand what you're saying because that's how I look at myself as a tinkerer. I like to experiment and try different things, and that's kind of why this whole thing started. With the fire and water cooking concept was mixing these two things. But I'm always looking at ways how I can change and tweak things, and that's kind of neat that you did it on the equipment side. But I see a lot of people also, you see, especially like the big time competitors like, Myron Mixon and stuff, they design their own pits and they sell them, market them. So
Yeah.
I know that whole tinker mentality can carry over, from the cooking side into the manufacturing side and vice versa. So it's just that mentality of trying to change things and make things a little bit better.
Right. I mean, in the end, it's all about the experience. I mean, you want good quality results in your food, but you also don't want to have a miserable time to get to that result. And so that's what I'm looking at is what can I do that makes that experience more enjoyable.
Yeah, and that's the companies I really admire, that I like to deal with and work with, like Camp Chef is one of them, where they don't just keep their product the same all the time. They innovate. I do a lot of work with Kamado Joe as well, the ceramic grill, and they always are innovating and changing their product, by getting feedback from the customer or, engineers, and trying to develop, new products or design their product just a little bit so it can be just a little bit better for their customers. So I think that type, I'm attracted to that because that's the way I think. I'm attracted to companies that think that way. But yeah, and I think those are the ones that are most successful nowadays. You got to be able to learn to adapt and change and make things better.
I have a ton of respect for those companies. Kamado Joe kind of, they sort of made their mark in their niche. And, you look at, I can't remember if it was the last generation of Kamado Joes that they came out with where they just completely changed, removed the daisy wheel on the top for smoke control, made a completely different control device, changed a whole bunch of stuff about it. And that there are people at that company sitting going, this is risky because a lot of people like what we've done, but they still were willing to step out and make it better.
Yeah, exactly. And now they got the third version, the classic 3 and the Big Joe 3. where
Yeah.
they have an actual insert called the slow roller that was designed by a company called Desura, which was a bunch of Harvard design engineers that put a company together, and it's got a built-in insert that's supposed to make the smoke better. So yeah, I mean, it's things like that. They're always looking to innovate and make their products better for their customers. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I really respect companies like that, and that's part and parcel to what you're saying is if you have that mentality of looking at something and not saying what's perfect, I don't got to change it. Always looking at it and going, what can I do to make it a little bit better or a little bit different, or make it to more my taste, or because I do that with cooking all the time. I'll see a recipe, maybe I will first make that recipe the way it's written, but then I'll go, you know what, I could probably tweak this a little bit more to make it more something I like,
Yep.
and then I do that. So uh, yeah, I really like that type of attitude. So besides barbecuing and grilling, do you do any cooking in the house, or is that's your wife's area, or do you guys kind of share the tasks?
Yeah, we share the tasks. I do a bit of cooking in the house as well. I'm not a stranger to really any kind of cooking. I've always been, I don't want to sound full of myself, kind of a natural with it. I've never really struggled. Following a recipe is no big deal, but also working from scratch.
And the reason I
Yeah.
ask that is because my wife tries to avoid the kitchen as much as possible. She lets me cook she doesn't like to cook, and she's never really interested in cooking. She loves to eat, but so she lets me take over the kitchen all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure I could take over, but I'll stick with it the way we've got it.
Now, do you consider yourself a foodie? Do you look at all different kinds of food? I mean, are you watching the Food Channel all the time, and or watching all the different Netflix foodie type programs?
Yeah, you could say that. I have no idea how many thousands of hours of that kind of stuff I've watched. Yeah, I do. I do get excited when a new restaurant opens up. I try to pay attention to kind of what are the latest trends, new ingredients, that kind of stuff.
Now, speaking of that, since you have started your company, have you been making it to like the industry type shows with all the barbecue companies and all that?
I haven't, and it's chapping my hide, to be honest. um, I really wanted to go to. There were a couple of them last year. I just couldn't make it work. I'm hoping this next year that I'll make it to at least one. There's so much good stuff out there. Yeah, I want to get into it.
I want to try to make the one it's the Hearth Patio and Backyard,
Yeah.
the HPB, and it's going to be in New Orleans this year. So I know some people that are going to be going. A lot of the big YouTube guys that are into cooking like to go. So I might end up trying to go there and take my wife for the weekend, try to make it into a trip, but I haven't discussed that with her yet. But
she doesn't know, but she's going.
But I like this. I like to see all that different kind of stuff too, because I like innovation and I like gadgets. Just like to me, it's like the guy who's into golf who has to look at the new golf club every year that comes out that says it's going to add another 10 yards to your drive or what have you.
Right.
I think that's built into us men, that there's always some new gadget that's going to help make things better that we need to go out and buy.
Yeah, well, and a lot of it's shiny. That helps.
It's shiny and new and different. I had Max Good from Amazing Ribs on a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, and it was great talking to him because he's got the greatest job in the world at AmazingRibs.com. From he gets to play with all the new grills and smokers that come out. And,
right.
Yeah, and so he's been doing that for 8 years now, and he says it's the best job he's ever had. It's just testing out these new grills and smokers and all the other barbecue equipment that comes out. So
yeah, I wish I had a steady stream of new stuff heading my way. I usually have to pay for it.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break for an ad real quick, and then on the second part of the show, we're going to go deep into what you're doing now, because I have a few of your products and I really enjoy them, and I think they are really well made, and I think people should really take a look at them. So, hey, all, I want to welcome again Inkbird as our sponsor for the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Inkbird has more than just barbecue thermometers and instant read thermometers that I've talked about before. Inkbird just came out with a Wi-Fi sous vide circulator that I've been using for a few weeks now that works pretty good. Has over 1,000 watts of power. Has an app that has many times and temps for meats and vegetables. Also has onboard times and temps for meats and vegetables. Runs really quiet. Fits most regular sous vide containers that are the size of the Innovas. So check it out. Look below. There's a link with a code for 30% off of the Amazon price that makes it under $60 right now till June 5th. So check out the Inkbird Wi-Fi sous vide circulator in the description below. Back to our program. All right, we're back with Raun from Luterbach, and you are the owner of Backyard Life Gear. And one of the products, actually, I think the main product that you make are the covers for and the shelves for the flat top griddles, so the Blackstones and the camp chefs. Which
Yep.
that's the products I have from you, and I've got the I think it's the aluminum diamond plate cover and the shelf, and I tell you what, it really makes that grill one of my favorites because I don't like canvas covers or plastic covers on my grills, and that the grill covers that you make just make it look sexy. I don't know. It gives it that really great looking quality. uh I just don't know how to explain it. It just sets the grill apart from everything else that's out on my patio. And the shelf with the magnet that holds the utensils and all that is just, I can't believe that they don't have that stuff, from Blackstone or Camp Chef that they sell, or they can sell with it. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I still remember the first prototype that I got of the cover in the diamond plate. It's all mirror finish. It's just hot.
yeah, it just brings out. I mean, when I first saw it, when I got the Camp Chef flat top, I said, there's no way I'm going to stick a ugly. They sent me the cover that goes with it. I'm like, I'm not going to stick this on top of there. It's just
Yeah.
ugly. It's a pain in the butt to get on and off. They rip all the time. They get dirty, and it's just. Then I saw your stuff, and I'm like, this is what I want. And that's what I thought first off is I can't believe that, Blackstone or Camp Chef doesn't sell this on their own or make something, OEM. I said, but this stuff looks amazing. I have like I said, the diamond plate stuff, and and it's well thought out. You got the hooks that hook to the back, so you don't have to take the thing completely off. You just slide it up, and it gets held on by the little hooks on the back. And when you're done with it, it cools off. You just slip it right back on. The utility shelf with the magnet holding your spatulas and all that. It's just that was the first thing when I first put the Blackstone or the Camp Chef together. I was like, where am I going to put my stuff? I don't want to stick it on the shelf here or on
Right.
the side tables, and I don't want to put it underneath on the bottom tables because I have to bend over and get the stuff all the time. So
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. How did you get started with designing and trying to put together one of these covers for the griddles?
Well, the way that it started, what wasn't my idea. Um, I had joined a Facebook group for Blackstone griddles, just trying to learn about them a little bit more. I wasn't that familiar with the brand, trying to expand my knowledge in the outdoor cooking arena. And I saw once a week maybe people were posting pictures of these metal covers that a friend of theirs made, who's an HVAC technician or metal fabricator or something like that. And as soon as the post was up there, there'd be 20 or 30 comments saying, "Hey, can you make me one? What would it cost?" And just anything to get one. So I saw that a few times and realized that there was an untapped market there. So I started thinking about it and going, if I was going to make one of these, what would I want it to be? How do I think I would use it? And so that's where the idea of adding the hanging clips underneath so that it can hang off of the back of the griddle to act as a windscreen, but also be a place to put it rather than just on the ground or leaning up against a railing or something like that. Seemed like kind of a no-brainer to me, and that's so far has been one of the favorite features that apparently Blackstone liked so much that they copied it when they came out with their covers. But that was kind of it. And noticed that there was people wanted it, and there wasn't anyone stepping up to the plate to bring it to market. So I figured, hey, why not?
So did you run out and buy yourself a Blackstone, or did you just try to design one on your own with just measurements? Or
I found a deal on one at Walmart. It was on clearance, so I ran out, picked it up, and kind of familiarized myself with the product. So it all happened kind of quick. The other thing that kept coming up with the Blackstone griddles is there was a little bit of a design issue with the griddle top itself and the way that grease drained from it into the grease cup. And so basically the problem was that if there was too much liquid trying to drain out, the surface tension would actually cause it to stick and sort of roll underneath the lip, and then it would run down the leg. And I thought, well, that seems like kind of an easy problem to fix. So at the same time, I came up with what I called the grease slide griddle mod, which is a little, basically a sheet metal, like a stainless steel chute that slid onto the end of the grease trough lip, and it forced the grease down into the grease cup, prevented it from running down the leg and all that. So that along with the covers is sort of what caused the company to blow up. I thought I might sell 100 of those things or 200 of those things, and it ended up being 30,000 of them. So apparently that was another need. Just wish I kind of got to that sooner. Wish I learned about Blackstones and that little problem a little bit earlier than I did.
Yeah, because it seems like they've corrected that with the new design,
Yep.
Pushing the grease to the back to that cup. But still, there's a lot of those older ones out there. I mean, and that's, really when I started looking at flat tops, I was looking at the Blackstone and the Camp Chef and some of the other off brands. But that one of the things that kept popping up with Blackstone was those little issues, things like
Yep.
that with the grease and some other design flaws that they had compared to like the Camp Chef. But not to pick on them, but it's just when you start looking to spend that kind of money on a product and give up some of your backyard space to something, you want to make sure it's working right, and they don't have to come up with some third party has to come up with
Yep.
a fix to redesign the product. So,
Yeah, and I mean, in their defense, they did have a few different generations, I guess I'll call it, of griddles, and each generation that they've come out with, they have made improvements on it. That one just ended up being a little bit more difficult for them to solve up front, but as you said, with the rear grease collection model, now it works. So good for them. Keep getting better.
yeah. So you started designing these the covers, and so how long did it take you to design the first one, test it out, and then feel confident that you could go ahead and start selling these?
The first one was it took probably 6 weeks. It wasn't a real long process. I modeled it in SketchUp and went and talked to a fabricator friend of mine, and kind of shot some ideas back and forth about how to make it, and basically how do you make it cost effectively, so make it simple, make it reasonable to ship, that kind of stuff. But really, there have only been a couple of relatively minor tweaks since the beginning.
Now, was your first one stainless steel, or did you start off with the aluminum diamond plating?
I actually offered both from the start. My initial thought was the stainless steel, and in that Blackstone Griddle Owners Facebook group, basically I put a post out there just kind of testing the waters. If I did this, so I put up a picture of my SketchUp drawing, and basically said if I was able to have this made and it would cost this much, would you be interested? No commitments or anything, just collecting data. And there were, some people said that's way too expensive. Some people said, oh, that's a great price. Some people had other suggestions for design changes. And it was in there that I got the request to have it made in diamond plate. And so I went back to my fabricator and asked, what is that a possibility? Can we make that work? Can I, split an order or whatever? And so we kind of worked that out and was able to offer both right from the start.
Yeah, I prefer it just because it's a little bit lighter than stainless, and stainless, even though it looks good if it's clean and brand new, it's shiny, but once it starts to wear, it gets kind of hard to take care of. And that diamond plating, you can do anything to it. Just every once in a while, you got to wipe it clean, and that's it.
Yep.
And I look at it as far as I want it to look good, with very little maintenance, and I want it to be lightweight when I pull it off and hang it from the back. I don't want it to, if my wife wants to do it or something, or my kid needs to do it, I want them to be able to do it. I don't want it to be overly heavy, and I want it to look good, no matter what happens to it. And that's what that diamond plating does.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It's good to have those options. So did you start with the shelving right away too, or was that something once you got the covers going, you said, well, hey, I got these other, things I could probably do with these shelves and all that?
Yeah, the front tray with the magnetic tool holder and the hanging hooks and all that came along a few months after the covers, maybe 6 months after the covers. It kind of seemed like a no-brainer. The more I got into cooking on my griddle, the one that I started with was a 28-inch, so the smaller one. It only has one side shelf. There's not a lot of room to put anything, and so being able to have that front tray where I can put my oil bottles, my water bottles, my seasonings, all that, and also have a spot to put my tools. Like how did we miss this? It seemed obvious to me.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize it until they start using them. Even on the camp shaft, it's got those two shelves,
Mm-hmm.
On the side. But if you put something on that shelf and the grill's cranked up all the way, the heat from the grill from underneath the top plate goes right at that shelf. So I put, the first time probably the second time I used it, I did something stupid, and I had some chicken in a plastic dish, and I put it on one of those shelves, and 2 minutes later I looked over there and the plastic was melting because that heat was coming right out, and from the space between the griddle and the flame. So yeah, it gets hot. So if you lay stuff on those shelves, man, that's going to heat up. So you don't really want to put your spatula on there, or your cooking tools, or definitely your squirt bottles, because they'll melt.
Right. Yeah, I think pretty much all of us have done that at least once.
Yeah, you do it at least once, because then you go, oh crap, and then you look down and you go see the heat's just pumping right out of there. Know. So, but yeah, I mean I love the shelf is probably. I probably like the shelf better than the cover itself, but I do love the cover because, like I said, I hate trying to throw canvas over something that big. It's always a pain, and it just looks so much better. And the full package, when the shelf and the cover and all that, it looks so much better than the grill itself, when it comes standard.
Yeah.
That and it just makes so much sense. Like you said, the magnet, to hold your spatulas there, so they're not just, you don't have to hang them on the hooks, but you got the hooks just in case you want to hang other stuff. The shelf there that's underneath the flame, so that you can put your bottles and other tools in there to so they don't get heated up and have all kinds of problems. But yeah, I can see where once you start playing with one, you start to that instinctive mind of starting to try to tinker with it comes into play. So what else have you designed besides that? Because I know that's probably kept you busy, and you probably you do a lot of those. But what else you've been working on?
So this past summer, we came out with some side table bottle holders for the Blackstone, sort of a lower cost alternative to the front tray. So we have a 2 bottle version and a 3 bottle version, and it just there's a couple mounting brackets that hook on with screws and wing nuts, so no tools required.
Yeah, they look kind of like cup holders, is what I reckon them.
Yeah. And so that allows you to to put 2 or 3 squeeze bottles or whatever on the side shelves. Still gives you full access to the shelves themselves. Again, it's a lower cost alternative to the front tray. And actually, what's kind of surprised me is a lot of people that buy the front tray also buy the side table bottle holders. So you just got this giant mass of diamond plate or stainless steel, and it just looks sweet.
Yeah, it definitely does. It does make it look a lot better. I sort of, it's not the only reason I bought it, but it definitely makes it look a lot prettier. That's for sure.
Nothing quite like a little bit of sunlight shining off of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, what else you got planned for the future? I mean, are you going to continue to develop new products, and are you going to concentrate still on the flat top griddles, or are you going to expand out into other, grilling and smoking?
We're working on some stuff for other brands, and also different types of outdoor cooking. So, like for example, my pellet grill that I mentioned I'm currently using is a Camp Chef, and I have the Sidekick on it, which it comes standard with a griddle. It's also a 30,000 BTU burner. And then there's an accessory grill box and pizza oven. So we're working on a couple of things that work with the Sidekick. One is a sort of a splatter shield. Whenever I use the griddle on the Sidekick, I just make a mess of everything, and I'm getting kind of tired of cleaning the rest of the grill. And then also looking at some accessories to improve the experience of using, say, the pizza oven. Always looking at other brands. What can we do that makes the experience better? But basically,
it's always a good idea.
Yeah, it's just it turned out that the griddle market was, first of all, it's probably the fastest growing segment of the outdoor cooking industry, and there were some obvious experience shortcomings. So we tried to fit ourselves into that niche, and it's worked out great. Now it's time to see how we take the stuff that we've learned and apply it to some other areas.
Now I know, like with Blackstone, they just came out with a new 28-inch with a cover.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of like I don't know. It's more like a grill cover. It's not like what you have. It's more built into it. It looks more like a gas grill type cover is what I can relate it to. But also they keep making these different models, like with the fryer on it and all this stuff. Do you look at those when they come out with those and try to see if you can adapt some of the things you already make to fit those? Or
yeah, I actually have one of the new 28 inches in my garage right now. So whenever they come out with something like that, we take a look at it. They've actually, they've really stepped up their game with their Pro Series, which this new 28 is in that. They're including the things that they have left out in the past. Like the cover, which looks like it's good. It also has has a magnetic toolbar on one of the side shelves. I think it also has tool hooks on the end of the side shelf. So they're stepping up their game. Makes it a challenge for us, but it's an opportunity for us to step up ourselves. And no matter what, the end result is the user is having a better experience.
Yeah, I think you're right though too. The flat top griddle market is growing faster than some of the others, other grilling apparatuses out there for sure. And it's especially when Blackstone comes out, and especially towards the end of the season, they blow them out so cheap at Walmart. I mean, they're mass produced. I mean, they pump a lot of these things out, and they blow them out for, hundreds of dollars off what they normally would sell them
Yep.
for. So, you see that on the Facebook groups, people, hey, I just got one for $100, and it normally sold for 200. It's like, wow. So, it does really, and I guess one of the things is just like any other company, they sell all the different accessories too, and they're right on the shelf next to the grills at Walmart. So people, they'll pay $100. Yeah, they're losing a little bit of money on that grill, but they'll buy all these accessories where they've got 50 to 75% markup on
Yep.
them.
At least.
So yeah, so they're making their money back, and the everything else that's sitting on the shelf right next to it. So, but I can understand how it'd be a challenge to you when they do start correcting some of these issues that you fixed for them, and then they look at some of the stuff that you guys designed and start incorporating into theirs. But like you said, it just makes you step up your game even more.
Yeah, and I mean, I think of it as a luxury. You could look at it as a disadvantage. My stuff, stuff that I designed and have had made is made in the USA. It's actually made about 45 minutes from where I live. The good thing about that is that I don't have to order container loads of stuff. I can test out a product, and I can order 100 of them and see how it works, get a feel for it, get feedback, make adjustments, do another run of 100 of them, put them out there, get more feedback, make improvements, do another run of 100, and keep on getting better. I don't have to make the investment that Blackstone has to make, for them to have enough of that new Pro Series 28-inch to stock Walmart. Just think of the dollars involved in that. And
exactly.
I don't have to worry about that. I can,
right.
And I don't have to sell millions of them to make it worth it.
Yeah, and like you said, they've got to fill up a couple cargo carriers, which is, thousands and thousands of units, to be able to get them over here to stock in the Walmart. So they might be losing some money on, maybe 10 or 20% of the ones that they're selling towards the end of the season or what have you. But they made plenty of money on the ones that they sold when they first hit the street, for sure. But it's a lot of expense. And yeah, that's one of the things about being a small, player, like you said, is you get to be able to test stuff out. Now, how was it when you got on Amazon? How much did your business change when you were able to start selling on Amazon?
It blew up, to put it lightly. At first, I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. I knew that if I had a run of covers made, that I could probably sell them out in a fairly reasonable amount of time. That in my mind, that was hopefully by the end of that year. So I had ordered 100 covers to start with, between the two materials. So this was in March of that year. I was going to get delivery basically the end of April, and so I was ready to sell them in May. So I was hoping to sell through the 100 of them, in 7-8 months, something like that. And they sold out in 6 weeks. So that's when I knew I was kind of onto something. And it wasn't actually for another. I think it was July or August that I finally had enough stock available to be able to sell on Amazon. And at that point, it became available and it was gone. And so we basically spent the rest of that year just ramping up. Every order that I placed was progressively getting bigger. So that was a fun ride.
So how are they set up with Amazon? Do you actually ship up some to the Amazon warehouses, or is it everything just drop shipped? Order goes through Amazon and it's drop shipped from your manufacturer that you have?
Everything that I sell goes through my hands. It kind of depends on timing. I try to keep stuff in stock in Amazon warehouses. I'm a third-party seller on there, So I own the parts, the product. I send it into their warehouse, an order gets placed, and then they pick the order and ship it on my behalf. Or if they run out of my stock, then I do have the ability to fulfill the order myself. So it's a mixture of both of those. Some of it depends on the popularity of the product. Some of it is just timing. If there's a big run on one of them and they sell out faster than I expected, then I will probably still have inventory. So while I get another batch shipped off to them, I can still fulfill any orders that are placed.
So right now, what's the most popular selling item? Is it the covers themselves? Is it the shelves? Is it the side holders there? Or?
Generally speaking, it's the covers. The last few weeks, the front trays and the side table holders have been flying like crazy. Probably it's Christmas season, but their price range on that is like $25 up to $100, depending on the size and the material. So it's right in there as a reasonable price for a gift. Also, often people that have a griddle, the first thing that they get is a cover. If they're looking to accessorize beyond that, the front trays, the side bottle holders, that sort of stuff is a nice thing to ask for.
Yeah, because cover, you pretty much want to make sure you're protecting that surface.
Right.
I think the Camp Chef may be a little bit better seasoned than the Blackstone. I know I had a Blackstone for a little while, and that thing seemed to, no matter what I did to it, always had some rust on it. So I always had to have it covered. Even when it was covered, it still got a little bit of rust. But that's definitely something you want to have. The side shelves are great, like you said, and the shell, but they're not as practical as getting that cover on there.
Right.
So awesome. So what else are you going to be looking at down the road for the? I heard you got a smash burger.
Yeah.
Like spatula too that you developed, right?
Yep. So obviously, with the increasing popularity of griddles, the smash burger is kind of a hot topic, and there's I don't know, a dozen different tools out there now. The original was 2 spatulas. You smash it down with them. There's different variations on it. One version that a lot of people like, it's basically like a steak weight or something, bacon press, that kind of thing, circular, but then it also has a lip, so it makes sure that your burger patty has an even thickness. And some people like that, some people don't. Some people, think it needs just the right amount of ground meat. Some people think it's too much. Some people think it's too little. So the other problem with it is it's super expensive. It's like $60 or $70 if I'm remembering correctly. So I wanted to come up with something that was reasonably priced, that worked. So we came up with I think it's a fairly clever design out of just a sheet stainless that gets laser cut, and then the handle gets folded vertically, and then there's a silicone handle that goes on it, so it stays cool. But that's, we sell quite a few of those, and that's, it's under $20. So, not a bad deal.
Right. And you're solving another problem. So you're, offering, your design intuition into other products. And I'm sure once you get a customer that starts to buy some of your products, they kind of get to know you and like you, and then they start looking at some of the other stuff you offer. But
yep, it still surprises me now that anytime I release something, I still have customers that were literally like within my first dozen, that every time I release a product, they buy it.
Yeah. Well, that's like any kind of brand. You've developed your brand now, and people like it. And if they see something, they go, "Hey, wow, I could use one of those," and they'll buy it from you because they know that you make quality stuff.
Yep.
So, all right, Ron, I think we're going to wrap this up. All my listeners out there, make sure you check out Backyard Life Gear. I'm going to put a link to the website down below. You can also find a lot of his products on Amazon, like we were talking about, especially the griddle covers. Like I said, I have one. That's the aluminum diamond plate. It looks awesome, and the shelves as well. They make your griddle look amazing, both Blackstones and Camp Chefs. So make sure you check them out. Raun, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we'll have you on again talking about some new product that you've come up with.
That would be awesome. Thanks for your time.
No, thanks for being on. Appreciate small businesses like you who solve problems and make these wonderful products for us.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I want to thank Raun Luterbach from Backyard Life Gear for joining us today. Make sure you check out the links below to his website, and you can also find him on Amazon. Make sure you check out the Fire and Water Cooking Facebook group and page. Also, check us out on Instagram and follow us on the Fire and Water Cooking channel on YouTube. And join us again for the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast episode.